Hello. Welcome to our meetup. We have a talk evening tonight, and what you can see here is the agenda. And we're first going to have short community announcements about us and what we are and what we're doing. And then Ellen is going to give us a short lightning talk about reasonable refactorings. Then Christine is going to talk about the future of tech communities, intersectional feminism. Then we're going to have a short 10-minute break, roundabout. And then we're going to have a talk from Hannah about transitioning from science to data science. And then we're probably going to be done by 8:30. All right. We're PyLadies. We're a group of, like an international group of women and also marginalized other groups in tech. And we want to support each other and help each other in the Python and open source community. And our mission is to promote, educate, and advance a diverse Python community through outreach, education, conferences, and events, and social gatherings, and meetups like this one. And if you want to participate, you're very welcome to do that. We also have a code of conduct. So it's especially important for us to create a respectful and harassment-free community and environment. And we don't tolerate harassment, and we will also watch out for that in the comments, etc. And if you have, if you want to reach out to us as well, if you were here, and you can write in the comments, and we'll try to watch out for that. And if you want to get involved, give a talk or a workshop, or help us organize a meetup, or organize one yourself if you have a topic in mind, then you can reach out to us on Slack, Meetup, Facebook, Twitter, or per email. All of these are fine. And just reach us. And we're going to have a couple of next meetings as well. So we're going to have an open source hack night on the 26th of April. On the 17th of May, there's going to be another talk evening with similar talks to the one we have today, and another open source hack night on the 31st of May. And we're going to send around a feedback link for this meetup, and you can say how you liked it or how you didn't, and things we can maybe improve. And now I want to present to you Ellen, and she's going to talk about reasonable refactorings. And have fun.
Thank you very much. Very happy to be here. So I'm going to talk about reasonable refactorings today. And the reason behind that is that I mostly tend to be some kind of a perfectionism. So I also like code that is kind of perfect. And the thing with that is that you often don't have time, and there's also often no need for perfect code. So what I started learning and where I actually got good at is being a pragmatist instead of a perfectionist. And I'm going to present to you my 5-minute lightning talk about takeaways from or about reasonable refactorings without Googling. So I hope you enjoy it. When you try to become a pragmatist instead of a perfectionist, it's a bit hard in the beginning, but there are methods you can apply to becoming pragmatic. The thing with pragmatism is that it may leave unfinished business behind. And I always tend to imagine that as a pile of trash in the back of my head, which is, for example, unclean code that I'd like to tidy up at some point. And the thing is that this pile of trash tends to grow. So when I started programming, I asked my former boss what she does about this pile of things that are not perfect and what she does about tidying it up. And what she told me was, do not refactor just to refactor, which actually left me with a topic for this presentation. Because how do I refactor then? And first thing I ask myself is, what if you just don't refactor? The problem with that is that things that were straight and tidy and ordinary at the beginning tend to become more and more entangled by time, and in the end turn out to not be maintainable anymore. So that's not really the thing we want to go for. But on the other hand, what happens if you refactor too much? Because that also leaves your product owner unhappy behind because no features get done, and also your colleagues are not really happy about that because you tend to introduce breaking changes, and also the code diff that other people have to review become kind of unreadable if you don't stop at any point. So I asked myself, what do I do to still refactor? And I thought to myself, okay, first thing I have to know is when do I have to refactor? And also, how do I refactor? And in the end, a very important step is to stop refactoring. So figuring out when to refactor, you can, for example, start asking yourself questions. The most important one is, do I understand this? And if you find out, okay, I don't understand this code at all, then others are very likely to not understand them too. And you can start refactoring and make the code more readable. Second is kind of pointing to all the coding patterns that are out there. And you can, for example, start asking yourself, does this component fulfill only one responsibility, and check the single responsibility problem with that. And also, if you want to do a simple change, for example, I don't know, changing the button color of your primary buttons on your website, and that change is taking way too much time, then it's a sign for messy style sheets, and you should also start refactoring them. Another thing are kind of visual indicators, which help you to figure out where there's code that needs tidying. First thing would, for example, be coding styles that are not followed. So you can just see that something is not formatted the way as usual. But these are things that you should start optimizing, and they should be fixed automatically for you. But same visual indicator would be repeated code, because you can just see that there's codes looking the same and start reusing them. And another thing would, for example, be classes that tend to grow over time, where an indicator could be lines of code. But beside these visual and coding patterns indicators, what becomes more important is that you develop some kind of gut feeling for code smell. For example, measurable by what the fucks per time, or you just feel that things feel too complicated and think that this should be easier. And that actually develops over time when you get more and more experience. But also, one thing that you should keep in mind is that you should generally trust your colleagues and find out if there was a reason for introducing this complexity. And what I normally do is that I look at code comments and also at the commit message, which may explain why this code is complex. These things are all options to find out if there is something to refactor, which leads us to the point of how to refactor. So a couple of rules when you really want to refactor something. Do it right away. What I try to do is always leave code a bit cleaner than I found it. And the good thing is that, sorry, that's actually kind of easy, because every change you do to existing code, no matter how small it is a refactoring. So for example, renaming is refactoring, and also reordering and reusing code is already refactoring. Second rule is avoid creating separate tasks for refactoring. So it may be that there's currently actually no time to do the refactoring. But what I find better is combine it with a user story instead of just a separate refactoring task that no one's ever going to pick up. Because once it's in the backlog, it tends to stay there for quite some time. Or if it's, I don't know, directly related to code, I also try to put some fix me comments where the next person coming across the code can fix it if there is time for it. And also try to make it smaller. Break it down in smaller steps, or if you can't break it down, set a time box, and most importantly, give it a separate commit so that other people can review it separately and that it is not mixed up with some feature related changes. Last thing, don't go too deep into the rabbit hole. You should try to find an end, and also tell yourself that good enough is often just good enough. That's actually it. I hope you found something helpful, and I'm very happy to hand over to Christine, talking about the future of tech communities. Doreen, you are muted, at least for me.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. That's my bad. I was actually muted. We have a question. If you
Sure.
want to answer that. Do you have any tips for refactoring other people's code? For example, when you're not familiar with it.
Yes, I mean, in best case, you know that person and can just ask them if they have time to, I don't know, talk it through. Or what I tend to do beforehand is actually looking at the code lines, because what we do at my company is adding the ticket of the task to the commit so that you can find out, okay, to what user story is this maybe related, just to give it a bit of context. And no, I forgot what I wanted to say. There was a third thing that I wanted to add. I forgot it. But maybe these two were already good enough. Look at the code, try to ask the person, and yeah, if you don't understand it, maybe it can also be that the code is rubbish. Maybe write it again or new.
Thank you very much. I hope the question is answered. By the way, we have a Slido link that should be in the comments and that you were able to see in the banner, where you can ask questions and then we will address them with the speaker. Here you go. Thank you very much, Ellen. That was very interesting. And now we present to you, Christine.
Hey, y'all. How's it going? Happy Tuesday. Feels like a Monday. All right, y'all. I'm so happy to be here. And the title of my talk is Intersectional Feminism and the Future of Technical Communities. So today I'm going to cover the definition of intersectional feminism, the ways that it affects everyone every day, and how we can begin to incorporate these values and theories into our tech communities today. So a little bit about me. My name is Christine Cepelak. I've spent the last 10 years working on data and social issues, and I'm based in Berlin. So I love this slide as we start to talk about feminism. So I myself have never been able to find out precisely what feminism is. I only know that people call me a feminism whenever I express sentiments that differentiate me from a doormat. So that might resonate with you, but we'll add just a little bit more to the essence of feminism. So essentially, when we talk about feminism, we're talking about addressing systemic inequality. And women are impacted by these systemic inequalities in three core ways: socially, politically, and economically. So an example of a social impact is we are sometimes restricted from having the freedom to make our own life choices without the fear of violence or retaliation. Political impacts would be not having equal representation and protection from discrimination under the law. And economically, this is something that maybe we all experience as folks involved in the Python community, but pay, career growth, and social mobility. So now we will move on to what is intersectional feminism. So we've defined feminism. Now we'll talk a little bit about intersectional feminism. Oop, here we go. So here is an official definition. It is a form of feminism that stands for the rights and empowerment of all women, taking seriously the fact of differences among women, including different identities, based on radicalization, sexuality, economic status, nationality, religion, etc. So here is an example of how these two theories are different in a way that maybe we can all relate. So when we talk about the pay gap and we address this issue in our society, feminism that is not intersectional might only focus on breaking the glass ceiling or helping to develop the careers of corporate women. So negotiating salaries, women in leadership, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas intersectional feminism would also include a fight to raise the minimum wage, as in the US, just as an example, nearly 2/3 of minimum wage workers are women. So you can see how they're different, right? So one focuses only on the needs of a small and extremely privileged group, where the other includes everyone that experiences the inequalities in our system. So you might, if this is a new concept for you, or if you are feeling unsure of whether or not, why this is important, why is it necessary, it seems like something that maybe it's only for like really socially active people. I want to talk about why this is an important theory for everyone, and why it is hopefully a destination for our entire social system. So here I want to talk about our history. So our current social system is defined by people in power over centuries. So the world did not begin with like women earning 77 cents to the US dollar. Like, this was something that was manufactured and created over time by people. But history has also shown that our systems can be changed. So things like the civil rights movement in the US, the labor movement, which is what secured workers the minimum wage, and other protections, this has shown that our social system is malleable. And what it means to kind of engage with this theory today is to really claim our rightful place in history. So there is we belong, I guess, is kind of the core message of why this is necessary to really to mull over and to begin to incorporate into our daily lives. So now I want to continue to talk a little bit about why this theory, like why intersectional feminism, right? So in my talk description, I talk about, we've got wars, economic collapse, natural disaster. There are so many social issues. Like, why is intersectional feminism like the theory that will move our society forward? And the reason for that is because it is truly inclusive. So it addresses all the impacts of sexism, white supremacy, classism, and so much more. And it also centers the most marginalized people. So you will sometimes see some quotes about intersectional feminism, like women of color who experience some of the most the weight, the burden of the most biases in our society. When they feel comfortable, when they experience equality in our society, that's when we know we have arrived at inclusiveness and equality for everyone. And ultimately, the goal is to shift our system and shared social thought towards a fundamentally inclusive society. So that I think is the goal. Instead of dealing with one-off issues or arguing about language and things like that, I think intersectional feminism allows us to apply one lens of thought to decisions in everyday life all the time. So that's the value of that. So now I'll talk briefly about how this does touch all of us in our everyday life. So I want to ask y'all whether or not you've been to a doctor recently. So doctors in the US and elsewhere have been taught that race is a biological factor and should inform their diagnoses, which often leads to really harmful and baseless assumptions. So for example, in the US, many doctors are taught in their textbooks and believe to this day that Black people have thicker skin than white people. and thus have a higher pain tolerance, which then would lead to not receiving anesthesia or other types of care that would reduce their pain. So this is intense. This is something that affects people's lives. In education. So I want to ask, ever wonder about your German great-grandmother? So my great-grandmother was from the Prussia area, what is now modern-day Czech Republic. So she's included in this. But it might be interesting for you to know that in 1908 was the first time that Prussia or Germany allowed women to enroll in universities as a regular student. So someone as close to you as your grandma might have no role models or social capital, people that have built knowledge-based careers or pursued higher education in their space. So those role models are so important to supporting our development and our careers ourselves. So economy, I mentioned it earlier, social mobility, as a person's ability to kind of move up and down in society, in the economy, is a huge indicator of a healthy economy. So you'll often hear folks, when they talk about the economy, say like, millennials, are not earning as much as their parents were, relative to their parents, or they don't own a home, or they don't have these assets compared to their parents. And they're really referring to the ability of people to, grow and move. They have the support and the resources to move around in the economy. And today, almost half of women born to parents in the bottom quintile of wealth remain there as adults, compared to 35% of men. So that's really saying that women are still, even to this day, lacking the resources and the support to change their lives, which is huge. So next, I want to ask if any of y'all are runners. So I was a cross-country runner in college. I did that for 10 years and absolutely loved it. And I was really surprised to learn that it was only in 1967 that a woman broke the rules and registered and ran for the first time in the Boston Marathon in the US. So if you're not familiar with road races or marathons, the Boston Marathon is the absolute pinnacle of marathons and road racing. You have to qualify. It's extremely exclusive. It is it in terms of long distance road racing. And essentially, this woman, Catherine Switzer, she registered with just her initials, so they didn't realize she was a woman. But when they did realize, and as she was running, multiple race officials literally tried to drag her off the course because women were banned from running marathons because they were told that their uterus might fall out if they run. So yes, so this woman is obviously still alive. This was not that long ago. She recently ran the Boston Marathon again as a 7-year-old woman. So I'll show you an image later that I feel it always really impacts me when I see it, of just the reality of the desire to keep women out. And just lastly, for those of y'all that are really concerned with climate change, and we're really working towards having climate policies that can move us in a sustainable direction. Oops, sorry. I want to just talk about, maybe your class, like your economic status lands you in a neighborhood where you do not have protection from climate change. You will experience severe impacts even though you contributed the least amount to climate change. It's said that if nothing's done right now, climate change will push up to 130 million people into poverty in the next 10 years. So, these are ways that class, race, gender, all of these factors really affect our everyday lives in really, really important ways. So when we talk about climate change, when we talk about medical education and our doctors, these are places where we can apply that intersectional feminist lens outside of the tech communities, which I'll talk about a bit later. So here's that image of Catherine Switzer. You can see she's 261, and you can see these giant men just trying to drag her off the course, which it's just, I see this photo and it just is so moving. And she was a runner on her university's team in Syracuse in New York. And her team members ultimately surrounded her and blocked the officials so that she could finish the race. And so I think what a really powerful example of allyship. And just, yeah, this is a really powerful image for me. So lastly, I want to talk about how we can take this theory and apply it to our technical communities. So first, I really want to encourage folks to think about our technical communities as an ecosystem. So each of these organizations, they all contribute something different. They do not have to be all things to all people. It is okay to leave an organization that does not align with your values, but just as long as they are ultimately in this ecosystem where they're advancing the cause of feminism and equality for women. So that is one thing. So I want to encourage people to find places where they're comfortable and to start communities and things like that. And my next suggestion is I really encourage organizations to clearly communicate their alignment with intersectional feminism. Not only does this help members begin to understand what this means, but it is a commitment to applying these principles to their leadership and decision-making in terms of the community. So yes, clearly declare that forwarding the cause of intersectional feminism is part of your core mission. And lastly, I want to encourage organizations that even if they don't declare this, or even if even if you as a person are a part of a larger organization that maybe does not claim or communicate intersectional feminist values, if you are in a position of leadership or if you are a volunteer, maybe consider your decision making through an intersectional feminist lens. So for example, when you're planning an event, I know it can definitely be challenging, but to think about, is this accessible? Is the most marginalized person in our community, would they be able to access this event? Would they understand what we're saying? So even having just a process or just asking the question, I think prompts these conversations to happen. And it's a snowball effect of people thinking about how we can create a more inclusive society. So beginning to wrap up, this is I think a wonderful quote. Those who do not move do not notice their chains. So I think as women, I know I had to do a lot of learning myself. It wasn't until I got into the workforce and I really experienced a lot of discrimination, harassment, exclusion, things like that, when I made these movements, I really noticed the ways that these systems were trying to keep me small. So I just encourage you to take those risks in your careers, make movements, be your boldest self, and get clear on where these social boundaries really are so you can learn more about them. So happy to answer any questions, of course. And I want to also share that you can find this presentation on my GitHub at Cepelak. I have put links to all the references, so if you want to investigate more, you can find all those references in the presentation on my GitHub. So thank you so much for listening, and I'm excited to connect with more of y'all. Thanks.
Hello. We don't have any questions yet, so if you still have a question, feel free to put them into Slido and we'll read them here. Thank you so much for the presentation. That was super cool, and I love the slides. And I would have a question, actually, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So in especially with these things, I've always feel like if you've never experienced that, it's super hard to pay attention to it. Do you have any tips on how we can pay more attention to when this is happening and also be more aware of when this is happening?
Sure, absolutely. So I think this is one of the things that diversity really does do for us when we get the chance to relate to folks that have other experiences. So I think in terms of a community, creating the space for those folks to share their stories, or whether it be through feedback, I think PyLadies does do a great job of opening the door for people to share what they want to see. But I also think on a personal level, reading books or just reading and learning a lot has really helped me to understand some of the experience of other marginalized people that I've been unfamiliar with myself. So I'd say relationships in the organization, there are many like Black Girls Who Code or Black in AI. These are wonderful organizations that we can be friends with. And then on a personal level, challenging yourself to read books written by women of color. So all that is definitely out there and has definitely opened my eyes for sure.
Well, thank you. Do you have any, so on the other hand, so if I now experience something that makes me feel super uncomfortable, do you have any tips on how to raise that? Like, especially like in a workplace, for example, how can I raise that in a way that it's received the best and also like that people actually do something about this?
Yeah, this is a great question. I know for myself in my career, when I have worked in data analyst roles, I'm typically the only woman. I am the only person of color. I'm the youngest person. It's like everything. And I think this is one of the huge benefits of communities like PyLadies. So I think these situations can often be not only really emotional, but the organization can oftentimes not be on your side. So I think getting support from other women and some objective feedback can really, really help. I know that has helped me. Oftentimes, because organizations are a part of these systems and maybe they are not inclusive, you want to really think through what you are trying to accomplish, and sometimes leaving is the better choice. So I think I want to assume that many women have experienced this, and so if you join our community, you might find someone to talk to or ask anyone in leadership. But I would suggest find support in your community. Like that is definitely what we're here for. Go from there.
That's such a beautiful answer. Thank you very much. And we have one question now, which is, do you think companies in Berlin are open for progressive ideas, like discussing about intersectional feminism? Sometimes I'm afraid to bring it up at work.
Oh, I love that. Yes, I think this is a huge challenge. Based on my experience, I do see similar levels of resistance in Germany as I experienced back in the States. And I think, in terms of like our role at work, it's really challenging to take on the additional burden of educating other people that they should respect you. Like it's like an extra job to do. And so I think one way to do this is something that I've done in other organizations is made it really clear how people can be an ally and just try to recruit people that are open to joining in very specific ways. And then I think, I guess my answer is, I don't think it's your job to change your workplace as a worker. Culture is from the top down. It is not your job as an employee to convince everyone else that they should be respectful and inclusive. I do believe there are companies that are respectful and inclusive. So my 2 cents, find your support in the community. Grow your resources and your own knowledge of intersectional feminism so you can apply it in your work. And just try to find the people that align with that, and slowly but surely we will encourage people to I think join this movement and and become respectful of all people's experiences.
Thanks so much. Hopefully that is answered. And amazing talk and like such an important topic. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Bye.
And now we're gonna have a 10-ish minute break for everyone. And then we're gonna have the talk from Hannah about transitioning from science to data science, which is a really cool talk as well. Thank you. Welcome back to our meetup. The next talk is going to be from Hannah, transitioning from science to data science. She has a PhD in neuroscience and was working a long time in the academic area, and then switched to being a data scientist. And she's going to tell you a bit about why, and also how she made that transition happen. Enjoy.
I'm a former scientist, a neuroscience PhD, and I'm working as a data scientist and software developer at a company called Intersectional. Now that I'm a data scientist, I'm often getting My name is Hannah. I'm a former scientist, a neuroscience PhD, and I'm working as a data scientist and software developer at a company called Intersectional. my name is Hannah. I'm a former scientist, a neuroscience PhD, and I'm working as a data scientist and software developer at a company called Intersectional. Now that I'm a data scientist, I'm often get contacted by former colleagues and neuroscientists all around the world who ask me how I transitioned and how to leave academia and become a data scientist. So this talk is for you, for all the academics who are, want to leave academia. I will just outline my personal journey into tech and as a bonus include everything I wish I had known when I was transitioning to data science and searching for my first job. With this QR code, you will find several resources that I will mention during my talk. So if I mention a webinar or a community, you will find it here. Have a look. I will start with introducing myself and telling you a little bit about myself and why I left academia, and then we will dive into the total transition part. So about me, I'm a data scientist and software developer at Cepelak. We are a data company. We build end-to-end data solutions with a focus on geodata, geospatial data, and we build products from from front end to back end, such as web platforms, dashboards, and apps. So before I was working at Cepelak, I was a neuroscientist until 2020. This is a picture I took of my head and my brain when I was a postdoc, and I was scanning participants in the functional magnetic resonance imaging machine scanner. So this was when a participant didn't show up and we had like some free time. I really enjoyed being a researcher and a scientist. I loved collecting data in the functional magnetic resonance imaging scanner, MRI scanner, and I loved to work with data and also write papers and make up hypotheses and questions which you can solve and with data. But like the best part was always the part when I came to the office from the scanner and had a hard drive with new data with me, which I could analyze. I really loved this data analysis work. So, but still, when I was offered my extension for my contract, I had a fixed term contract like most people in academia. I was a bit undecided because, as I said, I really loved my job, but this would have been like my second postdoc position. And if you are in academia, you will know the Act of Fixed Term Contracts in Academia, which basically says that after 6 years after the PhD, you have to find a fixed term contract as a professor, because it's getting very difficult then in Germany to get an extension for your contract. So this was something I wasn't like sure about. Should I get another extension? And also, I think the main drawback for me was that becoming a professor is like a very different job than being a scientist, like a researcher, like I was as a postdoc. So as a professor, you're like mainly organizing, grant writing, and like doing the groundwork for the researchers who are doing the actual work. And this was like not really the job I was looking for and I was interested in. And then it's like really competitive to become a professor, and then to be like really start this competitive process for a job that I didn't really want was like I was like hesitating. And just in this process I saw the opportunity by a postdoc graduate school. They offered to pay for career coachings, and I took the opportunity and went to the career coach. And after the first hour, of which was supposed to be a career coaching to enhance your academic career, I decided to leave academia for good. At this time, it felt a bit like jumping off a cliff, because I saw this quote recently by Dr. Female Former Academic on Twitter. And she writes, "We've never been told that the academic career path is only one of the many possibilities. From PhD to prof, that's what we've been told. But when you're out, suddenly there are myriads of possibilities, yet you're not trained to pick a path you want." And this really resonated with me, and I think this is also like, it's spot on, because that's what I felt. So how to pick how to pick the path, how to find the path you want. And I would now, in retrospective, I would suggest to ask yourself 3 very simple but also like really difficult questions. And these questions are: what do you want, what do you bring, and what to learn? And I think these questions are very difficult because at the beginning you will not know what the possibilities are and what can you actually want. It's a bit like being asked which cake do you want to bake, and you don't have a recipe book nor any idea about the stock you have available. So I would suggest to start with reading job ads, which are a bit like recipe books for data careers, and also to ask people outside academia what possibilities there are, and then to start applying as soon as possible. And because for me it was a very good opportunity to get to know the job market. You talk to interviewers, to talk to people inside the companies, and you can ask questions. And I would really suggest to not wait for your dream job or wait until you have the feeling you're prepared or good enough. Just take it as an opportunity to learn and to get to know the market. And I will go through the questions one by one now. I start with the what do you want question. So I think first things first, I think the first and very important question that you have to answer for yourself is, should I stay or should I go? So I think it's very important to make this decision to either stay in academia and put everything you have into becoming a professor, or make the decision to leave. Because I think if you want to, either decision is fine, but you will only thrive if you know which path you want to pick. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to quit your job. I would suggest not to quit your job immediately, but just shift your focus from writing your next first author peer-reviewed journal paper to building a community outside academia. And then if you while exploring what you want, ask yourself about your motivation and what you really like. So you're here at the PyLadies Talk and you'll probably already program Python. So this is a very good start if you want to work in data or tech. But even as a Python developer, there are still myriads of possibilities, and I would really suggest to ask yourself what are the activities that make me forget time and to get into the flow state, and to what do I really enjoy doing or programming, when asking about your motivation, ask yourself about your boundaries as well. And I think the more specific you can answer these questions for you, the easier it will be for you to find a job. At the beginning, I thought if I was too specific, it would actually lower my job chances, but I think it's just the other way around. For example, one of my boundaries is that I am based in Berlin and I'm not willing to relocate within the next years. So I want to stay in Berlin for my job and either work here or remote. And for me, it was very important to make this clear when talking to a company, and because I think it makes it easier for you to find the job that you like and that fits to what you need, and it will also make it easier for the company to find somebody who's a good fit or match to them. So try to really be specific with your goals and needs and boundaries and interests. Okay, and the next question is, what do you bring? Evaluate your skill set. And I think this is very closely related to the what do you want question. So if you want to work in data, I would start with investigating the data roles. There's really many roles by now. It's data scientist is just one of them. There's data engineer, data analyst, machine learning engineer, AI researcher, cloud architect. There are really many roles, and one good start for me was a webinar by AI Guild, which you find on YouTube, and on the website that I provide, you will find the link, where they talk to different data scientists and data engineers and different roles, and explain the roles. And I think this is a really good start. But then you should always keep in mind that these data roles, they differ from company to company. I think there is a broad definition for each role, but for example, in a smaller company, it's typically these roles they're not as clearly defined, and because there is not a specialist for every task. So in general, it's typical that in a smaller company you do a bit of everything or more of everything. And the bigger the company is, the more defined the roles are. And always ask the interviewer what they expect from you, what their everyday life looks like, and how they define the roles that they search an employee with. And then if you have an idea about the role that interests you, the next step would be to find out which of the skills that you already bring might be needed or interesting for the role that you want to work in. And in my experience, academics tend to underestimate the skills they already have. So if you program either Python or R, you might have been working with data a lot. You know how to solve problems, you're trained in analytical thinking, you know how to work independently, you know how to focus, and these are valuable skills, and highlight them in your CV and ask people outside academia to help you to adjust the wording and try to find out what you can actually use in your new job. And then I think the adjusting your CV part is very, very important as well, because CVs in academia and industry are actually very different, and this could be a talk itself. I would just like to highlight 3 big differences. So this is the CV that I was using when I was applying for my last postdoc position, and as you can see, I included lots of contracts and started with my education, which is I think the most important part in academia, and I included the publication I had at that time. And this is the CV I use now. I start with the professional experience because this is more important in industry. I shortened it, so I think it's very important to just have 1 page, then include the technical skills you have, and don't make people search for your technical skills. And education is below, it's not that important in industry. And if you have a GitHub account, you should definitely include it. It's very important and a big bonus if you have something to show. And I would like to add, so don't use the same CV and send it to everybody, but take the effort if you are applying for a job to think about why them and why this company, and adjust your CV according to the skill set they expect, and try to make it easy for them to see why you fit and why you are interested in their company and this job or this role and their product or anything which you find interesting. And for this purpose you can also include a small statement similar to an elevator pitch about who you are and what you want and why you really want to work at this company, and try to make this stand out. And then the what to learn part. So this obviously depends a lot on what you already know, and it depends a lot on what you actually want to do. And as you fill the gap of what you want to do and what you already know, and you learn something, I would recommend to document your progress in your GitHub. And maybe there is a small project that you always wanted to do, or a technical, like a tech stack that you wanted to add to your, like, to what you are doing. For example, if you're aiming to be a data engineer, you will probably not have enough experience with cloud infrastructure. So if you're learning something, like build something, try to show in your GitHub what you are learning and make a README so people can actually understand why you do this and what you thought about it and what your approach was, or why this project, or what interests you about it. So if you have something to show on your GitHub, it's very helpful. It's in software development and data, it is a bit like a business card and a portfolio. And hiring managers will have a look at your GitHub if you have something to show there. And then if you ask yourself, what do I need to learn? I came across this quote by Kelsey Hightower, and it says, "A career in tech is less about learning a specific tool as it is the willingness to learn a different tool when the time comes." So if you ask yourself, am I good enough to apply? And I would always say, yes, just start. And if you are in tech, there will be like a lot to learn always. And with every project, there will be like a new tool or a new programming language that you might need. And you will like progress. Will make progress on the job. And I think working in tech is like really committing to the willingness to learn a different tool when the time comes. And then if people ask me how to like keep motivated and to keep going when applying, and this is like really my favorite part, become part of your new community. You are here at the PyLadies Talk, and PyLadies is a great community. I really love it, and it helped me a lot when I got started in tech and in industry, because when I left academia, it was January 2020, 1 month before the pandemic started, but I was like, luckily I went to a lot of meetups before I really actually quit my job, and I already knew many people in my community, and it was like really helpful to go through the pandemic with them and with their support and their encouragement. And we really tried to encourage each other and help each other, and it was so inspiring. And it's also a very good opportunity to find like travel companions. If you're looking for a job, there are many people out there who are looking for jobs, and connect with them, do projects together, which you can show on your GitHub, or do peer programming. I think it helps a lot to not be alone in this process. Then one thing I would like to add, and what I would suggest to consider, is to contribute to open source. So there are like in data and in tech, there are so many open source libraries, for example, in Python, like Pandas and NumPy and scikit-learn, and they are maintained by the community. And if you can contribute to open source, it's a great way to support our community and our tools, and to give something back, and also to learn and to have like, it's really fun to like do this together. And it will be a big bonus if you're applying, if you are a contributor. So there are like several ways to get started. I would like to mention, for example, Maren Westermann. She is also a PyLadies organizer, and she is doing sprints in Berlin at the moment. There will be one soon again, where she organizes like so the community can come together. There will be a core maintainer present, Adrian, and it will help you get started if you haven't been contributing, and if you have already been contributing, you're always invited to come and help like the newcomers and career changers to get started. So this is like a really, really great opportunity. And then I would also finally suggest to get active on social media. I love Twitter. So there's a big community of also former scientists and who are now working in industry. And I would like to highlight Dr. Nicole Betz. She founded a Slack channel which is called Moving On from Academia, where there are already several hundred people supporting each other, finding a job outside tech and outside academia, and not only in tech, but also I think in different jobs. They are like collecting interview questions and companies which are hiring juniors, and yeah, I would recommend to have a look at the Slack channel, which you also find on my website. And then, yeah, finally, I would really recommend to talk to people as much as you can, because the hidden job market is actually huge. I read that 85% of the jobs are never advertised, but they're just word to mouth. So if you talk to people, you will hear of jobs where you can apply. I personally found my first job in industry on the AI Guild Slack channel, where my boss was posting something, and we got in contact. So yeah, talk to people, go to meetups. It's also a great opportunity to discuss like salary if you ask people nicely in one-to-one conversations. It's not something they will like disclose openly, but if you ask them nicely and promise to be confidential with the information, then you will get answers, and it will be helpful for you if you are interviewing and ask for your salary expectations, to have an idea, a realistic idea about what you can expect. And then finally, I would like to talk about referrals. It's something I didn't know anything about when I was leaving academia, because we don't have that. But in tech, it's not. It is actually pretty common to be rewarded if you are working in a company and you can recommend somebody who is actually hired by your company. So say if you are working in a company and somebody is asking you for a job and you refer them, you might get a bonus, and it can be just a bottle of champagne, but in some companies it's actually several thousand euros. So asking for a referral is actually a win-win situation, because maybe at the end you will be hired and they get a bonus. So it's totally something you can do. Okay, and this is the end of my talk. The year is 2032. 97% of former academics are now employed as data scientists. So I don't know, let's see in 10 years how that looks. I am really happy working as a data scientist now. I often get asked if there's if it's industry and my academic job, if they differ very much, and I don't have the feeling, because I'm actually doing data analysis and programming, what I did before, and I think the only big difference is that I have now a permanent job contract, and it helps me a lot to really enjoy my my daily work, and helps me to focus on just getting better in what I do at the moment, instead of worrying what will be next year or in the upcoming years. So I'm really happy now, and let's and if you are leaving academia, I wish you best of luck, and go for it. And I would like to thank my my company Intblick, and also all the great communities. There's so many out there, and these are the communities I really feel most connected to, and they really supported me when I was searching for my first job. And these are the people behind it, and I would really like to thank you for being encouraging and inspiring and making this awesome communities happen and thrive. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Hannah.
Hi.
That was super, super cool and super interesting. And we have 3 questions for you. The first one is, were there any role models for you when you were making the transition that had done a similar route?
There were some role models, but for instance, Maren Westermann, she has a very similar background. She's, I think, she's a biologist. I met her on one of the meetups, and we became friends. And she is a data scientist and also a co-organizer of PyLadies now. But I met many great people on my way and on the meetups, not only with a academic background. For example, Noah Tamir and Katharina Rasch, they supported me a lot, also with a small boot camp, which they did online during the pandemic. And there were also many people who I met on the meetups, which were looking for a job just out of academia, and it was very helpful to just meet with them and have a coffee, have a chat. We did projects together, and
Thanks so much.
There are many people out there looking for a job after academia. Yeah,
makes sense.
Having a job. Yeah.
The next question is, how much do you think your prior career contributed to your path today? Did you do any statistics course before getting into data science, or any other specific course? I think some of that you already answered, but maybe you can summarize it.
Yeah. I didn't do a statistics course because statistics was part of my daily the analytics part of what I did as a postdoc and during my PhD. And I think what machine learning is also just a part of statistics, or statistics a part of machine learning. I don't know. It's very. I think it's different terms for very similar job. What was the question again? And if I did any courses. Yeah, I did this small boot camp which was but more focusing on like talking to stakeholders and less on the analytics part, because I think this is something that I didn't really had to catch up with, but more like in how to how to apply my knowledge to a different set of questions. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
Thank you very much. I hope that answers the question. And then the next one is, what do you think is the best way to start the job search, and how to find out which roles and companies actually fit, I think, the profile and what I want?
Yeah, that's a good question. As I said, I think starting the job search, also read job ads, and I think it also already helps if you read them, then you get a bit knowledge on what it is expected, what skill set is expected. As I said, talk to people outside academia as much as possible, go to meetups, and you will like talk to data scientists, data analysts, data engineers, and ask them what they actually do. And I think if you talk to them, you will find out what, like, you will get a feeling, oh, this is like something I would really love to do. And then look at your CV, what you are actually doing right now, what you love doing, what you would love to do. And I think you will get to know yourself better and the companies better the more you talk to people. And as I said, apply as soon as possible. I think applying is also a very, very good way to know the job market. And even if it's not your dream job, just get started, talk to the people and have interviews. And then I think sometimes you will like really get the feeling this is not the company I want to work for. And this is also very helpful. It's very helpful to find out what you don't want. And you will also stumble across companies that you will like. And I'm working at a company now where there are like many academics, like we are all like former scientists. And this is also like a really good fit for me. But I think it also like very much depends on what you're interested in. So maybe fintech is what you are interested in, or like maybe if you have a background in biology, there are also like companies like working with biologic questions, and maybe that's also fit. It really depends on your background and your interests.
Cool. Thank you very much. We also have one question in YouTube. Hi Hannah, nice talk, regarding the misconception that industry doesn't offer as much autonomy and freedom to pursue your own questions. Do you think there are any downsides to making this transition?
Yeah, I got this question before. So also if I miss anything in my daily work now, of course it's maybe not your question what you're like working on, but then like to be honest, as a postdoc it wasn't my question either. So I think one of the big advantages in academia maybe is that you like if you have a question and you work on this for like maybe 3 years, and you have a very great autonomy and freedom on what you are doing, like in these 3 years maybe, and I think in industry, these questions are like they tend to be smaller. Like I'm working in sprints now, and I have like 2 weeks in general, in which I have like a task to accomplish, or maybe 4 weeks if it takes 2 sprints. But this is like maybe, I think, more or less like a normal time frame. I personally I like it because I was like I thought like 3 years it's also a very long time with one question, and in neuroscience it's also like of these 3 years there's like 1.5 years data collection. So this was not like it. I love taking pictures of brains, but I think data collection for 1.5 years was like a bit tiring. So it has its ups and downs. I think it's like it's nice to have like such a long time to work on one question, but it's also nice to like see results more frequently. That's my opinion. Yeah.
Makes sense. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're gonna have all the other people here again.
Hi.
From all of us, thank you very much for joining our meetup. And we have one last question about our open source hack nights. What level of knowledge and skill is required to attend the open source hack nights? I'm keen, but I'm very new to programming.
I can start. I think there is. I would love to have Maren here now because she's the organizer of the Hack Nights. I think if you have like some knowledge of Python, it's very helpful, but it's not required. So you can even get started with when I did my first contribution to open source to scikit-learn, I started with documentation. So also documentation is a very helpful and important part for open source contributions. So you can start there and develop from there. Jessica, maybe you want to add something, or?
I think that was a fantastic answer. And yeah, I think like the work is so much more than committing code. Of course, like you want to learn and you want to be able to commit code. I think I can completely emphasize with that feeling because that's how I feel when I approach an open source project. But also there's lots of other work that needs to be done. So the documentation and even like organizing events like this one or like the open source hack event is actually contributing to open source. I think it's a great space to find people who can share with you their journey, like Hannah, and learning resources that they might have found useful along the way. So that will really help you begin that journey. And I think open source is a great space to leap into if you want to have the opportunity to work on a project that isn't purely your own project and start reading a lot of code, not even just writing it.
That's true. That's also very important, yeah.
Thank you for the amazing answers. And I think that's it with all the comments and questions. It was lovely to have you all. Thank you for the amazing free talks. It was so fun. And hopefully see you either soon at the Hack Nights or at the next PyLadies Talk evening in a month.
And thank you, Doreen, for emceeing.
Yes.
Well done, everyone.
Great.
Enjoy your evening.
Bye.
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 Sure.